Hi, my name is Javi, and I wanted to introduce myself and my new interview series called The Answer is All of Us. In this interview series, I just want to give a space for some of my friends and some people I haven't met before to process our emotions with all of the crazy stuff that's been happening in the news and in the world. And I hope that people are able to look at these episodes and relate and process emotions themselves. In this interview, in this episode, I'll be interviewing my friend Emma. We've been in book club, a virtual book club, for the past 3 years. And even though we haven't met each other in real life, we've done a lot of work to understand each other and understand the world around us. So let me know if any of this relates to you or if you learn anything new about yourself or the person who's being interviewed or the world that you're in. So thanks. Tune in. Word button. Okay. What I wanted to start with, okay, let me say the intro. It's not really much of an intro, but it's hi, Emma. How are you?
I'm good. I'm okay. How are you?
I'm good. Thanks for asking. Thank you for meeting with me today. I'm excited about this.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so I start every Zoom with a breathing exercise.
Mm, love it.
So we're gonna do, I forget what type of breathing this is. My dad told me about it, but it's like this like I think I've heard you talk about it before, but you go in for 4, then out for 8. Yeah.
Okay.
So I'm just gonna count. I did my breathing exercise before we started, so I
Okay,
can't really
great. Like,
count and breathe at
you're
the same time. So let's close our eyes. Okay. Okay. I'm just gonna start. Inhale. 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold. Exhale. 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Inhale as much as you can. Hold. We're going to exhale. 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. One more time. Inhale as much as you can. Hold and exhale. 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay. How was that for you?
That was really good. I feel like sometimes with breathing exercises, like I don't know, people count funky, and then I'm like, like a lot. But that was so nice. Yeah.
Cool. I'm glad. Okay. I'm gonna start with a little bit of kind of a game. We're gonna do like a word association first.
Okay.
So I'm gonna give you a word and you're gonna say the first thing that comes to mind. Only one word.
Okay.
Okay. So when I say curiosity, what do you say?
Mm, play.
When I say insanity, what do you say?
Spiral.
When I say calm, what do you say?
Ocean.
Mm. When I say spirituality, what do you say?
Uh, the first word that I thought of was incense.
Fair, fair. When I say government, what do you say?
Stress.
When I say funny, what do you say?
Happy.
Huh? When I say community, what do you say?
Mm, mm, support.
Okay. I like to do that exercise because I feel like one of the reasons why I wanted to start doing this was because I feel like I was running away from a lot of these feelings that were right under the surface. And I'm
Mm,
saying, I feel like every day, since living in fascism, I've been like, I kind of sometimes feel like I'm suppressing things or that I'm looking at things and I'm like, I kind of have to look the other way or something just so I can
mhm.
try to, process things as much as I can without feeling overwhelmed. which is the
Hmm.
overwhelming thing that's going to happen. But I wanted to ask, are there any feelings that you have that you kind of are feeling underneath, like every interaction or every day that you kind of want to like, avoid that or something?
Mm. Yeah, I feel like mm, I think there's like a lot of like underlying panic or just kind of like not knowing that's really hard to deal with. Like I think I'm, yeah, definitely the type of person who, even though like in a general sense, I'm like okay with ambiguity, like in a like an ongoing way, it gets really stressful, especially if there's nothing that you feel like you can do to like address it, you know? I'm trying to think of something specific that I'm like, uh, I think one thing that definitely is always just like an undercurrent is like, um, yeah, just like work or like being able to like find something that is like sustainable and like that doesn't feel like it's gonna like stop at any moment or that still feels relevant or that like yeah, that still feels like somewhat aligned to like what I want to, like bring to the world. I think it always just feels like a pretty unresolved like piece and something that I like think about in like little bits, but then kind of get yeah overwhelmed by and be like, ah, okay, I'll deal with that later.
Hmm. What do you mean by work? Do you mean like your artistic work or just like resistance work?
I think I mean more just like ways to make money. Like I think there's a lot of things that I do
Okay.
that like yeah, like in other sense of work in in other sense of work I'm very busy, but in the like money they're like things that I do that make money. There's very few.
Yeah, I feel that. I'm like, I need to find a way to get money that isn't like that is so like I want something that's desperate enough to have me that I can just, be there and,
Yeah.
keep it going.
Yeah.
Wanted to ask, do you feel like these are emotions like that panic or some of the emotions that you were describing are things that you can express openly, or do you feel like that's something you have to hold close to your chest?
Mm. I feel like this has definitely been something that I've felt change over time. Like I think before I used to feel like I need for it to seem like I have everything figured out. Like I need to like be there, one to yeah, help like support other people who are going through it, or just like, to not break this illusion that like, oh no, it's like I can handle myself or whatever. I think now I've definitely been a lot more open or I think like one being around people who also express those things and feel that way to some degrees like yeah also helps me be more honest about that and open about that um yeah I would say so. I think like now at this point um I think it's a little easier. The one thing that I was recently talking to a friend about, which yeah, I'm curious to know how you feel about this too. Is like for example, when somebody tells you a problem that like can't, not that like, yeah, it can't be resolved, or like they don't necessarily want you to help them resolve it, they just want to say it. Like I find that challenging. And I've also been on the other side of that where it's like I say something and I'm like, I don't want solutions, I just want you to listen. Um, I feel like some of that, like especially in these things of like this underlying anxiety, it's like sometimes I'm like, oh, what's the point of saying something if there's nothing that you can really do about it, just like voicing it. Um, Even though there's definitely moments where that feels, yeah, like cathartic.
Hmm. Yeah, I feel like that is something I don't know. I feel like when I'm like in high stress moments where I'm kind of just like crashing out a bit, I do feel like I need just to talk, like talk
Hmm.
shit, whatever, whatever, But I feel like because of the family I live with, like the extremely blunt people, everyone in my family will just tell me exactly what they think. So sometimes I'm like, I don't want to tell you because I know that you're gonna make me feel worse or
Right.
whatever. So I feel
Yeah.
like, yeah, I understand what you're saying. Like I definitely sometimes I feel like it's hard to even ask, you know what I'm saying? To be
Mm-hmm.
like, I really just want a shoulder to cry on because you don't know if that's going to be available to from that person. You know
Right.
what I'm saying?
Right.
So I
Totally.
think it's like there's a level of trust you have when you're around people
Uh-huh.
like that to get that shoulder or to just whatever. Because sometimes you're like in like the book club spaces, and you're just like, or not ours, but like if you're like
Right. In
around
another. Yeah.
not
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
at
Yeah.
that you're kind of like these people know more than me, but there's a level of like I want to cry when we're reading like resistance work or
Yeah.
but it's like I don't have that availability in the room, whether I feel like I could be like you know.
You're like, yeah. Totally. Yeah.
Um, are there any forms of expression that you talked about, learning that you've like clung to, just being like, I really like journaling, I really like doing this, this feels right to express myself.
Mm. I think for me, dance is definitely one of those. I think there's like something, yeah, something both in the like, okay, being able to like work through something and in the like, I'm gonna forget about, thinking about things and just kind of like feel things out for a moment. And I think like also it's really, I don't know, I think it's really interesting to see how things like uh fractal into art forms. Like for example, what's a good example? Like a while ago, I was taking this, some of my friends do this improv class that's based off of emergent strategy. And as I was taking the class, like I was just noticing that a lot of the things that I had like thought of from the perspective of dance, like I could also think of from the perspective of like organizing or like um just kind of like being a supportive friend or things like that where um like there was somebody who uh yeah like we're all kind of improvising in the same space and somebody else is moving really quickly or kind of like very sharply and I was like okay like something that you can do you can either mirror that person to like kind of show them back that dynamic or maybe you can move slower or like support in other places and thinking about that too where it's like noticing how other people are moving in the like ecosystem and seeing like how you can also both like do something for yourself and like be um also be there for them or like see them in a certain way. Um I feel like that has definitely been nice. Like yeah, I think that like spaces, yeah, movement spaces of being like we're gonna be just like really focusing on like yeah, being really intentional and mindful. Because I think sometimes like other art things too like drawing or other things, I start to like overthink or get kind of like, okay, like lost in the details.
Yeah, that's so interesting. I feel like what's cool about moving, like it's nothing's really cool about living through these times, but I do
Yeah.
feel like because I'm in search of something, like in search of community, I'm in search of like, releasing my spirit or like finding new
Mm.
ways. I am like finding it in like way parts that I didn't know I was gonna find them in. Like
Mm.
even
Like
what you're
what?
hearing, like even what you're saying about dance, like I'm searching for ways to move my body or like understand the way that we kind of all exist together and the fact that you can find that in dance, like through the emergent strategy lens, like or not emergent strategy,
Mhm.
but like even the improv, like those type of like the books, the information you may find, or like these certain questions you
Mhm.
have, like I can find it in so many ways. Like me and my siblings have been doing figure drawing
Ooh.
do like a figure drawing class or like a yeah, a little session 2 weeks ago, I think. And it was cool because I've never been to one, but
Hmm.
they both have because they went to art school.
Right.
And I was like, this is so awkward. And it was like a Valentine's one, so there was two models, and there were
Wow.
these two people who were like, you could tell they were so madly in love with each other because they would just stare at each other for like 10 minutes and they were just smiling the whole time. It was so crazy. But it was
Wow.
like, there's something about, drawing with people and kind of experiencing this love together and kind of just being like spectators or just learning how like we can all meet together and look at love and
Mhm.
kind of, like it was just something about that. I was like, this is filling something when I didn't think it would. I don't think I would find that here.
Right.
Makes sense.
Wow. Oh, that's so beautiful.
Yeah, so yeah, I feel like dance, that is, I've always loved to dance and I I love to see that that's something that you are really appreciating because it's hard to find things that
Hmm.
feel good. I wanted to know what are some things that matter to you the most?
Wow.
Because you say dance is one of the things, because I know you're a dancer. I know like the whole time that we've known each other, I've seen you dance, on Instagram or so I've never been there, but I could tell that's something that really matters to you. What is
Hmm.
something that you also like, what comes to mind when you're like, this is something that I really like have to grip onto?
Mm. I think, mm, yeah, I feel like it's kind of like part of what I was saying at the beginning about finding some way to feel like in community, like doing something that is counteracting some amount of like horrible chaos, whatever, like some kind of community work. I feel like yeah, often don't really feel grounded in a place unless I'm like, oh, okay, like I know, I know at least where I can like find more information about how to like, get involved. But more than that, like I like, yeah, like meeting people and showing up for people and like being there. I think that's something that like really makes me feel, yeah, feel grounded and like connected in a way where it's like, okay, like yeah, I can be going through stuff. Everybody can be going through stuff, but like right, there's some amount um of support in that. And I think yeah, also like being in nature. That's something that I really lack, like living in a city and like
Mm.
being but even like right, like going to a park or like trying to find it where I can, like I think it just like yeah, makes me think a lot about like scale or pace or things in ways where I'm like, oh, okay, like the constant like yeah rush of like ah okay like urgency and even in the way that we interact with social media or other things where it's like everything just feels so quick. um I think like taking time to be like oh yeah like doing a breathing exercise or just like looking at the trees or things where it's like like finding a place to just like be, which I think is really yeah it's like easy to forget. And I feel like I sometimes I'm like, okay, it would be nice to like lean on those practices, not only in times of crisis, but just like in general to have like a habit of doing that.
Yeah, I really like what you said about the words like scale and pace. I feel like I feel like that's giving language to something that I feel I'm trying to feel. It's like people keep talking about the urgency and kind of, what we can do and how people are like, wake up, but also like, I don't know
Hmm.
what I'm doing myself.
Yeah.
I am curious. One of my questions was just like plainly asking, what are the things that you feel capable of? Because
Mm.
when I hear you say that, I'm kind of like, yeah, I feel like when you're going against time, it feels like there's so little amount of things that you can do. So I was curious to
Hmm.
what you have like in full confidence, that you can do, what you're capable of.
Yeah. I like that question too of like a yeah, because sometimes it's easy to forget or to be like, I don't know. Like, I think I feel capable of one, like making things more accessible. Like I think somebody said something really cool the other day. I don't remember where this quote is from, but they were like, "Oh, nothing can be radical if it's not accessible." And I was like, "Damn, like that is like I feel like people are not thinking about that, you know?" Um and so I think like that is something that I really like doing is being like, okay, I want to make sure that like we can understand this. And that's not to say that I understand everything, but just that like I really like being part of processes or doing things where it feels like people can make sense of things. Because I think that also like what you said at the beginning, really, I was like, whoa, like running away from things that are under the surface or like not taking the time to or being scared of like understanding it. Like I think like finding ways for us collectively to like have some more like nervous system support and like being like, okay, like we feel resourced enough to like look at the hard things or like, kind of like engage in that process. I think also I'm mm, I think this was like an interesting moment as an artist too, where like sometimes I get to a point where I'm like, yeah, what's what's the point? Like, like there's like a lot of stuff going on. Like, is there something that I could be doing that is more useful? And sometimes it's like, oh no, like also making beautiful things or like making things like yeah, like I think there's like so much value in that. I think it took me a while to figure that out and like but then to be like, oh, like the amount of time that like I sit and I'm like I'm so glad that somebody took the time to like make this or like curate the space or like, put that thing on the wall or whatever. It's like it really does change the yeah, like people's experience. I was talking with my grandma a while ago and um, I don't know how this came up, but she was talking about how she like curates spaces. Like she is very intentional in like the colors that she likes to paint the walls or like the furniture and things like that. And she was like, I really like, you know, curating spaces where people feel welcome. And I was like, whoa, like that has something like that's something that I experienced, like, going to her house and things like that, but that I didn't think about intentionally, that like that is a process. And so I feel like that is also like a capability to be like, yeah, like I recognize that like things are really hard and I want you to like, have time to like yeah, even get to like have like a deep breath, to look at something and be like, wow, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Wow, your grandma's cool. Yeah, I feel like, yeah, I don't know. It's funny because I'm constantly being like, man, it doesn't even matter what I make. Like, I just make art and it's a bunch of bullshit. It doesn't even matter. But it's like when I'm in front of an artwork, I'm like, oh my God, this is the best thing I've ever
Exactly.
seen. Like, it's so weird because I will try to discount myself out of like that magic that happens when you're just
Mm,
watching somebody be creative. Um,
hmm.
so yeah, it's like, how do I remind myself of that? Because I don't want someone
Yeah,
else to give me the reminder. I want to be able to be like, You could do this, Havlin, and that's
right.
it." Like, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it's like that um pacing you were talking about too. It's like, do I have the time to sit down and draw?
Mm,
Like,
hmm.
do I give myself that time? It's like this whole mix. And I feel like one of the questions I wanted to ask too was like, are there any repeated thoughts you have when you feel like the world is challenging you? Because for me, the reason why I wanted to start doing these interview series was because like whenever I'd be like, should I be doing this right now? I'm kind of like, I don't know. Like, should I put my time here? I don't know because like the words I don't know kept coming to my mind and I was like, I gotta ask somebody else because somebody must know. Somebody must know something. Like, so are there any things like that keep coming up where you're just like, I keep, this keeps coming to mind.
Mm. Yeah, I mean, I also feel like I do that too of like extra, like just being like, like I need to ask somebody, like I don't know, like, and I feel like that's there's something, yeah, there's like something a little bit scary in admitting that, and there's something that's really helpful when you're like, okay, and people either are in the same situation or, like want to help in that way. And trying to think if there's something that like specifically keeps, I think, mm, yeah, I don't know. Like I just keep coming back to this like thing of being like, like it just feels really heavy all the time, and like not being able to see a way out of like I think that there's like so many beautiful things in terms of like uh yeah, ways to find like little bits of like respite or whatever in like, the grand scheme of things. But I think I just keep coming back to this idea of like, yeah, what does that mean not to just like have those little moments, but like have more, yeah, like wanting more optimism, and also like not being capable of being like, oh yeah, and things will be better. It's like, like, yeah, like I want to be at a place where it's like, oh, okay, I don't, it's like, what's it called? Uh, like not like disaster control, but it's like, it's like, okay, like as opposed to like, you know, like harm reduction in terms of like being like, oh, I'm going crazy, I need to like do something, or like I like, being like, oh, what does it feel like? Like, is it, is there a possibility of being like, oh, in general, I feel like balanced and like, like capable and whatever. And yes, things will impact me, but I feel, and like I feel in like a, a community sense if people feel like they can handle what's going on and they can feel like not just like baseline handle, but can like, feel excited about like things in the future and things like that.
Yeah. That's something I've also been thinking like I do feel like I'm nibbling or microdosing happiness right now. Like I'm
Right.
like because I'm like, oh my God, that was really good. Like I really need that. And then I'll just go back to be like, ugh, like,
Yeah, yeah,
like it's part of me is like getting really frustrated with that is that I'm just having to be like, oh, but that, that little time, that little pocket of happiness I really need to be grateful for. But I'm like, I shouldn't just be like living off of just pockets and like tiny
yeah.
little
Right.
specks of moments. I need shit to change. Like, what's going on?
Yeah.
Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I just, it's not fair to anyone to have to be like nibbling constantly and being like, I'll just take this for the winter, yum,
Yeah,
like a
right.
little sip of tea, It should be an overall like balance, Shit's always
Mhm.
going to be a little iffy, we're humans, but there should be more of like a at the end of the day, I can
Right.
chill, I can be myself. It's just a
Yeah.
way that I feel like I have to teach myself anyway, but it's been a bit harder because
Mm.
every day I'm like, what is going on?
Yeah.
Okay, I have a couple questions I was interested in asking. Okay, is there anything that you aren't hearing in these spaces that you want to hear, like in social media or like any resistance spaces, the book clubs, whatever, whatever,
Uh,
friends, family?
I feel like the thing that always comes back is like this idea of like not having space or not knowing like not being able to deal with like personal stuff in like or just like everyone's personal shit also coming into like the community shit, and
Mm-hmm.
like people like it happens and then it gets really messy and then nobody knows what to do and then everything kind of breaks down. And it's like I just feel like we should really have more tools to be like, okay, like everybody is going through it. Everybody's coming from like really distinct places, like, like also just like, you know, with different sets of like, yeah, like tools to help them personally deal with whatever they're dealing with. And like, um, I feel like for a while I've been like, oh, I really want to like learn more about like conflict resolution or like, ways to like work through disagreements. Like I think something that I had another friend talk about like how now a lot of like the way that we live is like trying to be like frictionless in the sense of like ordering food to your door or like trying to like uh limit the amount of time that you're like interacting with other people face to face, and that has also made it so that we're not very good at dealing with conflict or like resolving things or being scared of like bringing stuff up. And not like I think there's some parts where it's like, okay, some people are just very direct, but I think there's something to that where it's like yeah, it just gets really, I don't know, I would like for like in these spaces for it to be more like uh more of a skill that we can like work on together to be like, okay, like we're not always going to agree, and that's like important and good, but it's like for that not to break down, other things, or for people to not like and it's not to say that like you always have to separate, like whatever's personal and whatever's like collective, but I think that like just acknowledging one, how one influences the other, and like being able to like get support for that where you can't, because I think there's a lot of times where it's like then it just starts to like, yeah, kind of expand and like it's really hard to resolve or to like do that kind of like reparative work.
Mm. Yeah, frictionless is a good word because like I've heard people say like the convenience is like a big thing that we like the our convenience, Americans' convenience and the addictions and everything we have wrong. I was just watching The White Lotus. Have you watched that show
Mhm.
before?
I haven't, but my sisters described the entirety of the third season to me
Yeah, I
like
just
that
watched the third
today.
season because at first I had heard that it was boring and like there's like a weird incest part.
Yeah, I did
And
hear about
yeah,
that.
and I was like, I was just doing nothing. Me and Zoe were sleeping on the couch, or Zoe was sleeping on the couch, and I was like, I have a buddy here who she just knocked out, and I can just watch something.
Yeah.
So I was like, let me just see what is happening with this. And there was one family, the show season was kind of boring, I can't lie, but there was one family that was like about this dad, they're very rich, and this dad got in trouble for something with like finances or whatever.
Hmm.
And the mom, like they're supposed to be really loaded, and the mom, she's like on lorazepam the whole time, like on a sedative, and she's
Hmm.
just like, I need my drugs, I need my drugs, like all the time. And then it's like a thing in the season how much the family relies on drugs and how that kind of influences how they interact with each other. And it was making me think like my mom sometimes talks about how like white people love to be doped up and like and I
uh,
was like there is like a sedation culture that we're really into, especially when
mm,
you're like going up classes when you can afford, getting like the
right.
benzos or whatever, prescription drugs that not everyone has. And it's like the further you go up, the more you can numb yourself and like
Hmm.
calmly, like, just conveniently numb yourself. And I feel like that's something I really took note of because I was like, yeah, I feel like sometimes I feel like I do the same thing where I'm just like I can just sit in front of a TV and kind of zone out for hours.
Hmm.
So, yeah, frictionless is, I think, a good word because I feel like a lot of people are like community, community, like that's just like a buzzword sometimes. But they don't understand like people are really fucked up right now. And like
Yeah.
so much about organizing sometimes it's just like this person's really fucked up and so I am I. And like it's
Hmm.
gonna be a lot of work that I have to put in and for them to put in because this is not good. We're in this crazy ass system. There's no way we're not going to be affected by that.
Right, totally.
And even like people who organize can be bad shit. Like facilitators can be bad shit. You kind of have to just be like
100%. You're
have
like,
to,
okay.
you have to
Yeah.
be like, okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um
Sorry.
I wanted to ask, what do you think is wrong about how we're interacting with each other during these times? It could be problems that you see every day in family members, friends, and organizing spaces that you're just like, we're not approaching this in the right way.
Hmm. I think I'll just say like personally, I think a lot of times I have trouble like communicating things across to people who like I'm not sure will be receptive. Like I think that that is something that like I would like to get over, of being like um I don't know, like with like community or people that I know are like already doing organizing work or kind of like, like in those spaces. It's like, yeah, we're doing this and doing that, blah, blah, blah. But like, when I talk to family or when I talk to like other people, who are kind of like more, um, yeah, like in other circles or who I don't think will like perceive it well, often I'm like, like try to make it more palatable or like try to kind of like change it in a way where it's like I can I don't know, I think part of that is like, like to actually try to engage in a conversation as opposed to be like, this is what I think. If you don't think that, we can't talk, you know? But I think that part is difficult. Like I think it's just like, okay, how can you still continue to like share what is important to you in a way that can still yeah, in a way where you can like trust that people that you know who maybe come from different places or like, who have different opinions will listen and that you can also listen to them even if you disagree. I feel like there was something else. I think yeah, and the other I think this has just been on my mind recently, so like just trying to resolve this like thing of like, okay, how can we like, what are other ways that we can support ourselves and support each other at the same time? Because I think like it gets overwhelming really quick. And like, I think yeah, that's also a skill that I don't really have that I would like to learn about like, um, I don't know, something about like supportive boundaries, but like, in a way where it doesn't feel like if one person is like, yeah, like we're all going through it to like, various degrees and making sure that like, you know, it doesn't feel like we're all kind of like burdening each other, that like we can all be here and having a hard time and like yeah, still find ways to like lift each other up.
Hmm. Yeah, I agree. I agree. Okay, I'm also curious because we talked about what we're capable of, and what we want other people to do, how we want those conversations to happen. Is there anything that you think you personally have to change in order to come differently and participate differently in these conversations? Because I know personally, I have bad anxiety, social anxiety, and I feel like that's some shit that I really do need to have sorted a little bit more if I do care about, coming together and like learning about more people's personalities or like knowing my neighbor, you know what I'm saying? Like kind of
Mhm.
defeating that anxiety that I have all the time.
Yeah. Yeah, I think for me too, it's like not being afraid of disagreement, like I think sometimes and it depends like to various levels or like to, like I think there's one part of disagreement that like um is like uh like for example, I just made this zine and posted about it and somebody in the comments was like, "Oh, I don't think that this is like uh a solution or whatever." And at first I was like, "Ah, oh my God, like I'm being yelled at, scary." And then I was like, "Oh no, like like one, it's a good point. Two, like I've thought the same things, and being like part of the work of like sharing or like opening conversations is like, yeah, is talking through things, and being wrong sometimes or, whatever. And so I think, yeah, working on that of being like, okay, I can like show up and instead of, like, I feel like sometimes my instinct is like, oh yeah, well, if I'm like quieter, if I don't say as much, or if I only say things that I know that everybody will like, agree with, then that will be fine and I won't like cause any, like conflict. But I think it also comes back to what we were saying earlier about like not being afraid to ask questions or not being afraid to not know things. Because I think that is another place of like feeling like either you have to be like an expert in everything or like be able to defend everything or have like really well thought out arguments or whatever or be like, I have no idea what's going on. Like I think there's a lot of like in between places where it's like, I can, I can believe this thing, or I can like practice, kind of like trying to embody this thing. And I can also change, and I can also ask questions and I can also, yeah, kind of ask for support and things like that.
Yeah. I feel the same way. Sometimes you really just don't know.
Yeah.
Sometimes you're just like, I'm not bringing anything to this conversation, not gonna lie.
Totally. You're like a
Um,
listening ear.
we're gonna popcorn to that to somebody else because I don't know what's happening, you know.
Yeah.
I have our final questions, excited for this. I've been asking questions about how you feel about being a part of communities and what your kind of future, what you like, and what you think the future could look like, whatever, whatever. And I wanted to ask like just the straight personal questions for you, nothing too personal, but um, you have a lot to say about the world. And I want to know what you have to say about yourself.
Mm,
So I'm gonna ask the last three questions. Um, what is something that you want to tell your future self?
oof. Um, bro, that's a good question. I think like I feel like I have more like desires of like what it will feel like than things that I want to say specifically, but I think like yeah, some sense of like uh yeah, like calmness. Like I think like I feel like it's always a thing of like looking back and being like, wow, I remember like in that time I was really stressed, but like things worked out. Or like um I think yeah, the idea of like ambiguity and being like, ah, I don't know, like um I feel like yeah, finding moments to be like, like I hope that if that like um I was also talking with a friend about like not being able to value process as much as product and um especially in things like working through problems with friends or like uh yeah, some of it like will eventually turn into a product that you can share or be proud of or whatever. And some of it's just like, I had like five difficult conversations and like now, I feel a little bit better about the way that I'm relating to one person. Like that's like so much work and like, you just have to be like, okay, I need to internally be proud of myself for that. So I think, yeah, also like projecting that into the future too, being like, like finding more moments of being like appreciating the process.
I like that answer. I also have to remind myself of that all the time. We were talking about the art thing earlier and being like, I I don't know. How can I make myself actually recognize how important this is in the
Yeah.
process, you know? Next question is what do you want to tell your future self? No, sorry, my bad. I read that
Okay,
wrong.
I think you
What
got
do
it.
you want to tell your past self?
Mm. Wah. I think that I don't know. Like I think there's some things where it's like uh, oh, that's a good question. Like I'm kind of like, well, the past already happened, so I don't know. I don't know if I really have to tell you anything. Like
Yeah,
you figured it out to some degree, but I think yeah. I feel like it's like, oh, okay, like good job for relatively trusting your instincts and like yeah, some shit is gonna happen and you'll deal with it and it'll be fine. But I think uh yeah, it's like so interesting to like think, but it's like I had a family friend who told us a story about how when he like was just out of college, he taught a history class and he thought that like he was talking with another friend and he was like, "Oh, I think it would be a really good idea." His friend was like, "I think you should teach it backwards because usually people like students have a hard time feeling like history is relevant when you start in like the 1700s or whatever. So you should start with the current day and then like work backwards because also you don't get, you usually don't get that far." And at the time he was like, "Oh, that's a great idea." And then he was like this is actually the stupidest thing ever because he would be like, yeah, so like we're talking about like the Cold War and blah blah blah. And then people are like, yeah, wait, so why were they like mad? And he's like, we'll get to that next week. Like, it's like because everything like you have to know the cause of what happened to understand
Yeah.
why something happened. And I feel like, yeah, looking back in that way, it's like, oh yeah, like none of the yeah, it's like crazy to think about all of the like seeds that, were there at the beginning or just like things that were going to happen. But yeah, I feel like playing it back in reverse is so funny.
At first I was like, that's a genius idea. And I was like, yeah,
Right.
you're probably right. That sounds stupid as
So,
hell.
and then the more you think about it, you're like, no, wait, that's so stupid.
So, slavery. We'll get back to that at the end of the course.
Yeah, you're like, yeah, so like something happened before that, but like or you're like, yeah, like look at this like this economy, blah blah blah. And it's like, oh, how did that happen? Well,
And
we'll
then
we'll
and
get to
then Bill Clinton, right? Okay, hold that thought.
that.
We're gonna get back to that.
Yeah, you're like, be back soon.
That's actually hilarious. Okay. Last question. What is something you think you need to hear right now?
Oh, I think I feel like I always have this like obsession with like things being more integrated. Like I think like a lot of times in the way I live my life, it's like a lot of separate pieces. And like sometimes I always feel like I wish it was like one thing, or I wish it was like a few things, but like not as like fractured. Um and I think there's something that like I don't know. There's something I definitely appreciate every so often about like having a lot of different spaces because it feels like also a lot of different ways of like thinking about things. Um, but I think that like mm, something that I need to hear now is like yeah, I think it's like something about like uh trying to be less judgmental of the process, of being like everybody's working through things like and like also like mm, spending more time or not spending I don't know how to say this, but like really valuing the people that like weave those things together, I think. Because I think there's a lot of things like kind of coming back to the idea of like liking to help people make sense of things. Like I think um like this space or this, like our book club or having opportunities to like talk through things like um I think that yeah, I sometimes undervalue that. And so being like taking time to like be with people and like maybe just be like we don't know what's going on and that sucks. Or like this is really, like feeling important to me right now. And having that like, yeah, kind of like glue things together, I feel like is something that feels important
Oh, that's awesome. The word of the day is process.
for
I
us.
think we kept bringing that up. Yep. Cool. Thank you, Emma. I'm so happy we did this together. It made me very happy.
Yeah, no, I'm always like, I feel like you have such a cool way of like thinking about how to like activate things like in a social context of like I'm feeling this way, but also everybody's feeling this way, and also like yeah, it just feels like such a like sweet offering to be able to be like one providing the space and then two like sharing the content to be like yeah, like we're all in this. I
Cool.
appreciate
Thank you.
it.
Is there anything if that you want to plug your zine, your Instagram?
I know. Yeah, I started a newsletter. If anybody wants to be on my newsletter,
Cool.
yeah, I'll plug that. I wanted to not to come back to something, but the question that you asked about like just like having yeah, wanting to feel like proud of stuff that you do or like feel like that is valuable. Like what things have you like done that make you feel like that really make you feel proud of work that you've done?
Um, I feel like there's a couple things. I think it's I feel like I'm always surprised when people like something for me because there's sometimes where I'm like, "Ooh, that was amazing. I really ate that the fuck up."
Yeah.
And then no one's like, everyone's like, but there's times where like one of my friends, Eloise, like shout out to her. She like I was telling them the other day, like I've been posting on my Instagram and sometimes it feels like it's just going to a black hole. You know, I feel like there's this emptiness that comes with posting online because you're not seeing the faces.
Hmm.
And she was just telling me how much my poetry has meant to her recently as like a kind of just a breath of fresh air, like some type of solace in ways and like
Hmm.
kind of like an affirmation that the things that they're thinking about matter. And I was like, oh
Hmm.
my God, like that's all I've ever wanted to do as an artist, you know, has been able to make people feel things and feel less alone. So
Yeah.
I try to keep that in mind is like, you know, there might only be one person, but like that one person. My mom was always being like she was saying like if you change one person, you change the world. Is that something that people say?
Mm. I feel like that checks out. Like I haven't heard anyone specifically say it, but I feel like it falls in line with stuff.
Cool, cool.